The Book of Boba Fett, Chapter 3, The Streets of Mos Espa. So, this episode was, rather interesting, and by interesting, well, that's going to depend on which camp you fall into on whether you liked or didn't like this episode. Aside from going back to the short runtime again, we finally get a Book of Boba Fett episode that is more centered on the present timeline. Sure, there's still a flashback scene sequence here, but it's rather short. Instead, the focus is on the present, which continues to highlight just how little respect the people of Mos Espa have for Boba. And honestly, how can you blame them? Right now to them, he's just an old man with a sidekick and two Gamorreans. That's about it. So think about it. Why would a planet, much less a large city like Mos Espa, be afraid of that? Especially when they previously had to deal with someone ruthless like Jabba the Hutt who had a whole criminal empire. Obviously, Boba's got a lot to still catch up on. So, knowing he's gotta start hiring some muscle, Boba ends up recruiting the first group of people that he meets, a street gang of some hipster cyberpunk kids with droid modifications. Yep, goes hand in hand with Boba's image, right? Personally, this felt really out of place for me. Not just the fact that the way that these kids dress, where they look like they should be living more somewhere on the lower levels of Coruscant than, say, Tatooine of all places, but it just felt like a strange match. Not to mention that these kids complain about having no money due to having no work, yet they're the best dressed people on this side of Mos Espa. Have super fancy, expensive droid modifications that they admit that they spent a lot of money on, and have these fancy brand new Italian Vespa-looking swoop bikes. Yeah, I don't know about you, but something here doesn't exactly jive well with me. But sure, okay, Boba is desperate for people, so he teams up with a group of teenagers. Fine, whatever, let's move on. At the very least here, we get the lead female of the gang be some kind of semi-canonization of Arden Lyn from Legends, as she certainly looks the part 100%, but at the same time, I think they're just reusing the design and that's about it. As I highly doubt this girl planned to fight Luke Skywalker at some point, killed Inquisitors, is a master of Terras Kasi, and served Palpatine. Yeah, I'm gonna go with probably not there. We then afterwards get our one and only flashback sequence of the episode, which in my opinion already starts out on a bad note. And that is, we first see Kamino. Cool, but it's the exact same Kamino flashback footage that we've been seeing almost every episode now. I don't know, but it feels cheap how they keep recycling the same footage over and over again like this. Why even keep showing it if you don't have anything new? It's just my opinion. Anyway, after a short meeting of the Pykes, Boba learns that he needs to take out the local Nikto biker gang who are stepping into his business affairs of the Pykes. However, when returning back, Boba ends up finding the Tusken camp completely ransacked, with all of the Tusken raiders having been killed by that exact same Nikto biker gang. Well, he was already gonna take out the bikers before anyway, just that this time it won't be for business but for revenge too. The flashback is then quickly cut short because, as it turns out, Black Krrsantan has managed to get inside Boba's chambers and attacks him in his bacta tank. Now, how a big, scary Wookiee like him, who's not exactly known for his subtlety, was able to get inside the base and then make his way to the Daimo's chambers without being detected either screams of bad writing or just incompetence on Boba's part. Then again, seeing as how Boba's criminal empire has like 5 employees and they were all asleep at the time, I suppose basically anyone can simply walk in at any time and do what they want. Although, despite that, things do seem to start to get interesting in this episode, finally. I mean, an anticipated showdown between Boba and Krrsantan already? That's not something I thought would happen this early on, but heck, I was excited for it nonetheless. Unfortunately, it didn't really live up to my expectations, and that's not because I expected some kind of perfect masterpiece or anything like that, but just the quality here was not up to par. The fight choreography was just all over the place. It looked like they had to speed up and slow down the footage at times to make it look somewhat acceptable since Tamura really showed his age here, along with Krrsantan's attacks and movements not looking convincing at all. I mean, for the most part, he spends a lot of time standing around doing nothing and not really doing any major damage either aside from hurting one Gamorrean guard. Heck, he even does bite Boba's hand at one point and punches him in the face too. Yet there's no blood, no scratch, absolutely nothing. I mean, come on, it's like Boba's in a fight here with a Jawa or something. It's Black Krrsantan for Pete's sake. You'd expect to see some bruises happen at least. Or when Krrsantan basically crushes him with his bare hands and it sounds like his spine is snapped and he went limp. He should be paralyzed at that point, but nope. Instead, he walks the whole thing off in his bathrobe after like nothing had happened. Again, come on, is Boba's body made out of Beskar or something? Yeah, I don't know what else to say here. It was so bad it was comical. The whole fight generally felt quite cheap, low stakes, and poorly executed. Especially with how much we were all looking forward to seeing Boba take on Krrsantan in a fight, and well, sorry to say, but this just wasn't it. The twins later show up asking for Krrsantan back, and come offering with a gift, a pet Rancor for Boba. And not just that, but its keeper is none other than Danny Trejo too. Dang. Well, that's certainly someone I never thought I'd see in Star Wars, but yeah, I love it. He fits the part great, and I dig the idea of Boba having his very own Rancor too. So this part I did like quite a lot. Anyway, it turns out the twins are ditching Tatooine because the mayor has promised Jabba's former territory to another syndicate. So because they don't want a war on their hands, they're going back home and suggest Boba do the same. Boba instead says that he's staying and tells them that he'll give back Krrsantan to them only if they renounce all claims to Jabba's legacy on Tatooine. Which they don't, but Boba ends up releasing him anyway. Not even saying if he wants to work for him now or anything like that, especially since Boba does need the muscle, so that was a bit weird. To me, it feels like Krrsantan and the twins were really wasted here, used simply as a plot device to find an excuse to give Boba a Rancor of his own. Which hey, I dig the idea and all, but yeah, the whole thing could have been done way better. Boba then heads off to the mayor's office with his group of street kids, which is a bold choice by Boba if you think about it. If the two Gamorrean guards didn't scare the mayor, then some hipster punks should hopefully do the trick, right? Well, one thing leads to another and we get a whole chase scene featuring the kids go after the fleeing mayor's major domo. And probably an unpopular opinion here, but honestly, I'm kinda mixed about it. Yeah, the whole Italian Vespa slow-mo chase could have been sped up and all of that jazz. Sure, I'm not denying that at all, but at the same time, I did appreciate the eye candy that the sequence did give us. Especially for what it was and the quality it was. And I don't know, I had a bit of fun with it, despite how cheesy the whole thing ended up to be. But then again, what can I say? I also have a soft spot for the Power Rangers.
Power Rangers!
I definitely like that little Easter egg of making Ralph McQuarrie's concept art of Jabba's palace for Return of the Jedi be some kind of artwork in canon. I mean, who in the universe on Mos Espa would honestly want to hang that up in their home? I have no idea, but still. Yeah, it's cheesy, but what can I say? I liked it. Once the chase eventually does end, Boba ends up learning from the Majordomo that the mayor is now in league with the Pykes Syndicate, thus making him realize that, yeah, war is coming and it's inevitable. You're definitely gonna need an army now, champ. We then afterwards see a group of Pykes arrive on Tatooine coming off a Starliner. Which, while the CGI here looked rather nice and all, I can't help but question why a wealthy crime syndicate like the Pykes would be using basically what is public transit in the Star Wars world. That scene just felt off, like the rest of the episode for the most part. Now, I've got a feeling that people are gonna be rather divided on this episode, at least for the quality of it. As I feel either you loved this episode or found it disappointing and meh overall, which was at least the case for me. I mean, just the opening of it basically felt like a sitcom. The music, the camera work, the comedy, the lines, yeah. Something just felt off for me already then, and I knew that wasn't gonna be a good sign. So when I found out that Robert Rodriguez was behind this episode, it all made sense. In my opinion, he directed the worst Season 2 episode in The Mandalorian. Yeah, it had some badass Boba Fett action scenes, no one can deny that. But the whole thing felt super cheap, clunky, and amateurish. Then, while the premiere Book of Boba Fett episode that he did direct wasn't nearly as bad, at the same time I think we can all agree it had its fair share of problems. And now we've got this one directed by him, which, after Steph Green's fantastic episode 2, then I can't help but feel like Chapter 3 made the series go downhill in quality-wise. Sorry, but so far Robert Rodriguez hasn't impressed me, like, at all. He somehow manages to make the show feel incredibly cheap and silly, plus his style is way off and not a right fit for Star Wars, at least in my opinion. No hate for the guy or anything like that, I actually liked Sin City and Machete, and I'd really be down to see Rodriguez actually direct a Marvel series instead, as I think that'd be right up his alley, but him in Star Wars, probably not from what we've seen thus far from him. For that, give me Jon Favreau, Deborah Chow, and Rick Famuyiwa any day for Star Wars. Overall, this episode was just okay for me. I didn't love it or hate it. Like I said, I had some fun with it and there were some neat visual moments, but as a whole package, I'd say it was largely forgettable for the most part, which isn't great for a show that has 7 episodes in total. So far, we're 3 episodes in of Boba walking around the same locales, talking to the same people who never seem to say much, then always followed up with a flashback sequence. It's very predictable at this point. And I don't know, so far I'm not sure what to think about the Book of Boba Fett. With 4 episodes left to go, all we can really hope for now is that the best is still yet to come. And that was my take on this episode of the Book of Boba Fett. Let me know what you all thought about this episode in the comments down below. And if you haven't already, remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you on the next one.